Thanks everyone for joining us today for this Ability Podcast. I am your host and producer, Mary Baudouin. And today we have our guest, Jo. Thanks so much for being here today, Jo. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I grew up in Maryland, but my mom's from down here.
Okay.
My mom's side of the family is very Cajun. She grew up in New Iberia.
Is that where you live now?
We're in Broussard.
Broussard, okay.
We came down here like every summer to visit family and everything. I grew up in Montgomery County. I really miss the food because there's like all sorts of...
You miss their food?
Yeah.
Wow, that's it. I've never heard anyone
I know.
say anything good about food from up north. So
well, the thing is that there's all sorts of immigrant communities, and so there's a bunch of restaurants from all over the world.
All right, so let's just go ahead and jump into your personal experience with disability. What were you diagnosed with?
I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Okay.
And POTS, so postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome.
So let's talk about the first thing you said.
Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Okay, what is that? I've never heard of it.
It is like a bit rare, but I am surprised because it's getting more like well known lately.
Okay.
But Ehlers-Danlos it's a connective tissue disorder basically, and it has like a ton of comorbidities and stuff. Like POTS is one. But basically, so I have a lot of joint issues, a lot of joint pain, a lot of like, I've had a lot of issues with my spine. Like my, I had, when I was in my junior year of high school, I got a herniated disc and I ended up having to have surgery for it. Because none of there's like steps that they take before surgery, but none of them really worked. It's like, we kind of figured that was going to happen because that's the same thing that happened with my mom. But they were like, well, you still got to go through it. I'm like, yeah, great.
Yeah.
And then I currently have a herniated disc in my neck. Okay. I think it's like, I don't think I've been officially diagnosed with it, but my mom has this like degenerative disc disease, which is common with EDS. Yeah, like the discs in between the vertebrae are like degenerating.
Oh, wow.
And they're really funky.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have chronic pain, so I have like pain management and stuff and meds for it. And
yeah. Me
and my heating pad were like this.
Best friends. Let's talk about advocacy because I know that you are an advocate. You and I have been friends. We've never met in person, right? But we've been friends for a little while on Facebook. You do like to self-advocate. So how has that experience been like for you?
Well, when I was in high school, we had to go through the thing of getting like the 504 and everything.
Right.
For like both like the physical stuff and like getting around and like absences because of pain and stuff.
Okay.
And then also like accommodations for ADHD. And at college, it's been a lot. And especially because like the transition from high school to college, it's like you've got to do a lot more stuff like yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like I was always involved, but it's, college is like, they really want you to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I go to Loyola University in New Orleans.
Okay.
Because I use both like a cane like I'm using now, and I use typically when I'm at school or if I have to walk long distances, a wheelchair. New Orleans is a nightmare for being in a wheelchair. Number one, the sidewalks that have no maintenance done on them. It's like some of these pavements is like you need to go rock climbing because the tree roots have like fully like broken it all up.
A lot of our listeners are from the Louisiana area, and you guys know Louisiana, there's going to be some structural issues and infrastructure issues with roads. But like around Children's Hospital, I think the zoo is not far away, the Audubon Zoo. I have a van, right, a handicap van. And this is my second van that I'm in now. But the first one I had, it would sit low to the ground. I am telling you, I know that I have left parts behind on that road. Like I hit something and I'm like, oh my God, I think the transmission just fell out because the roads are so bad in New Orleans. They're horrible. Sidewalks, crumbling, not ADA compliant at all. There's not many buildings in New Orleans that are ADA compliant, Me
and my friends went out to the French Quarter one time, and it was interesting. Like the French Quarter is probably like one of the oldest parts of the city, so it's all the historic buildings, and basically everything has a step.
Yeah.
And so like I mean I don't know if they're like legally supposed to, but like they should have like a little ramp. It's only like one store that we went to actually had it. So me and my friends were basically just like lift the front wheels, lift the back wheels.
So yeah, accessibility in New Orleans in particular, I'm sure with Loyola, like you said. What is your major right now?
History.
History, and pursuing a teaching certificate. So what drew you into that field?
Well, getting into history was actually pretty connected to my disability because I did, since I was 2 to since I was like maybe 17 when my health like was really going downhill, I did dance. Like, my mom got diagnosed with EDS when I was younger, and we knew it was a genetic thing, and I'd kind of shown some of the signs, so we knew it was a possibility, but it's like you don't know exactly how bad it's going to be or what's going to be the main issues and all. So it was kind of like in the back of my head, but then once my health started going downhill, I had to like really grapple with that and be like, what do I do now?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know? I was kind of like, well, what do I enjoy outside of dance and things like that? And I started getting into history and Cajun history. I do a lot of genealogy and stuff like that.
Nice. I was going to ask you about education, and why do you think that's an important issue for students that have a disability, like access to education and things like that?
Yeah, I got into education because I've like my grandmother down here. She worked in the schools as a substitute in New Iberia for many years, and she worked a lot in specifically for special education classrooms because she was willing to go in there and all, whereas a lot of subs don't want to deal with that. And then my mom was a para educator in Maryland for a few years, and she's currently going back to school to be certified as a special education teacher.
Good for Mom.
Yeah, education's kind of always been like around me, like in the family, and something I've been like interested in.
Yeah.
And you know, in some ways it's like I love history, I love talking about history, so teaching, I get to tell other people about history all day.
No, do you feel like there's any kind of like a gap between the educators and the students? Yeah,
it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I've kind of seen it from like having people that work in special education in my family, and then also seeing stuff from people that have been in special education, you know, online and in communities and stuff. And it's like, and then like learning about it myself in my classes. I took like freshman year, like learners with special needs is one of the required classes. And it's like, I mean, it's a big issue. There's like a lot of things, but it's like there's really, I mean, like the history of special education and everything is like, it's a lot, you know. Like the primary approach to special education was like full segregation from everyone else, even to the point of like separate schools and things like that. That wasn't that long ago. Like IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, like the passage of that wasn't like that long ago in this grand scheme of things. Education can move kind of slowly, I think. Loyola has a law clinic, and what they do is for people like low-income people, they specifically do like special education cases, so they help parents get schools to like do what they're supposed to be doing.
Now you're the current president of Loyola's Disability Student Organization, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yay!
It's the Disabled Student Assembly. Well, we're actually new. Like I was involved in like, I want to say latter half of freshman year, beginning of sophomore year. I was involved in like starting it with some other people that had been like pushing to get it started for a while. We're planning to do a lot of fun stuff with like our members and all, like, you know, movie nights. We have this thing that we're planning on doing in a couple weeks.
Nice.
Where we're calling it like info dump night. So it's like if you've got something you want to like talk about, you can like make a PowerPoint or whatever and come and give your lecture.
Oh, I love that. Free speech, right?
We did an event like last year. They rented wheelchairs, and we went into this one like outdoor area, palm court. And we basically set up like a little obstacle course, and so as people are walking by, we're grabbing them. It was very fun, I think, for the people that were there, and also for us, because like most of us that were there like use or have used wheelchairs.
Yeah.
So we're like teaching them how to do wheelies and
How
between
funny is that?
us having
What was
wheelchair
the
races.
feedback like? Would you hear?
People seem to like really enjoy it. Like we had various people telling us about like, yeah, I have a family member that's in a wheelchair and I see how like difficult it is. I think this is awesome. And then like people that have never really been exposed to like life with a disability being like, wow, I didn't realize it was this difficult.
Right.
It was interesting that when they were trying to do the event, because we had DSA at that point, but they were doing it through the student government like accessibility committee because they had more money, obviously.
Right.
And so they were trying to like propose it and everything, and the student government was trying to shut it down because they were worried it was offensive, and we're like, we are disabled, we're the ones trying to put on the event. What do you mean? Our advisor is Professor Crago, and he's a professor, and he also a member of staff and like working in like tech stuff. And he's been here for years, and he uses a wheelchair, and so he's really been like pushing the administration for a long time on a lot of like physical accessibility issues.
Right.
Like there's like a whole like list that me and some of our members and him had put together of all like the accessibility issues on campus and like given it to the administration. It's floating around. Are they going to do anything about it?
I hope that they do, especially, and he's a professor, so you would think he'd have a little clout, right?
You would think.
There's room for improvement, I'm sure, with a lot of buildings, but
even in new stuff. Well, I was looking at like schools because I wanted to go to college in Louisiana, and so I was like looking around doing tours of them and all, and we were at LSU, and the tour guide is telling us about, it's like this big brand new like science building or renovated or something like that, and we try and go in the building and the button doesn't work. And at Loyola they just finished like this new chapel thing, which is mixed reviews. But it's also like brand new. And, well, there was, like, a whole hullabaloo that had happened surrounding it. But, like, our director of the Office for Accessible Education, like, during all this thing was like, yeah, I came here to look around, and I have an entire list of all the ADA violations in this place. Guys.
Wow.
What are we doing
here? What are we doing here? Yeah. Loyola, is it a private university or
it is private?
Private, okay, yeah.
And it's also, they just renovated the Dana Center, which is like the main student building with all like the cafeteria and everything. It's also like between the dorms and the like academic buildings and everything.
Okay.
And so there's like on the back side of it, like facing like the residential buildings, there's two entrances. There's one with steps and there's one that's a ramp. And so they renovated it, and so the door at the top of the ramp, it used to be sliding door with a button.
Convenient.
Exactly. You know what they did when they did the renovations? Took the door out. I think they might have scooched the entrance over a little bit, and that might have been why they did stuff, but they took the sliding door and the button out, and they replaced it with a pull door, and it pulls out onto the ramp, so there's like no space to maneuver, and they completely took out the button. So it's like I've got like my joystick on the right side. I would use my right hand, so it's like I gotta do this and then like reach across and like back up and yank this really heavy for no reason door.
People sit in a chair, and if you're gonna design something that's accessible, use it, practice it, right?
And it's so crazy. It's specifically the accessible entrance that's supposed to be designed for wheelchairs, and they were just like, there's an accessibility feature here, and they don't need it.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been working on at the start of this semester, was they added this new like barriers to access form that you can submit stuff about accessibility concerns and all.
Nice.
And so we were submitting a bunch of those, and so apparently facilities is planning to put a button on.
Good. Well, we'll follow up with them for sure.
Have they given us any timeline?
No.
I emailed the OAE director like a couple days ago. I was like, have they given a timeline on that? She's like, not yet.
Yeah. My family this past summer, we did a Disney cruise, right? It was amazing. However, I've sent an email to Disney. I'm waiting to hear back because I've heard that they are good with customer service, and they usually are. We were on the 7th floor, I believe, and I think that was maybe, if I'm not mistaken, the floor that's designated for people in wheelchairs, right? Which is great. You know, they probably have a schematic, right? Like a blueprint of how many feet the corridor is supposed to be. Well, that's great. It looks great on paper, right? So many inches it's supposed to be. However, throughout the day and night, there must have been at least 30 to 40 housekeeping carts located outside the room. I don't know why housekeepers, by the way, they leave the cart in the hallways. I'm going to have to ask a friend about this. Like, why do they leave it in the hallway? Why don't they just bring it into the room? But anyway, I digress. With the cart in the way, it takes away at least a foot, maybe 16 inches or so, where you can't pass with a wheelchair. It's tight. It's tight. With my daughter's wheelchair, it was tight. Now, the big problem was that, so it's the accessible floor, right? So someone else in the wheelchair is coming at you, and we're coming up, well, we can't cross each other. It's not wide enough. So one of us has to play the backup game. And then if you've got the housekeeper that you can actually see, the housekeeper, then you can actually back that person up into that room. And it's like, Disney, really? You could do better. Disney. You know, we're on this, I'm sure, multi-million-dollar ship. And I'm sure they consulted with people to have the accessibility done, but it's wrong. It's not practical. Mm-hmm. On paper, it could be beautiful.
They always do, like, the bare minimum that's required.
Yeah.
And it's like, if they're designing a building, it's like, they design the building, and then they're like, oh, what do I need to add? Slap a ramp on. That's my biggest thing, is that the wheelchair ramp so often is, like, in the back of the building next to the trash cans. Like,
how welcoming is that?
Exactly.
I'm just going to blend you in with the trash, right? How
Tell
horrible
me how
is
you
that?
really feel.
Yeah. No, this is true. This is very true. And so relatable, Jo. Like, things that you're saying, it's so relatable. Beyond advocacy and education, you've talked about your interest being disability and society, religion, and gender. How did those play into your life?
I guess depends on which one.
Yeah. You can break down each one. You can group them together. But let's touch on society and religion. How does that factor into your life?
Yeah, so Loyola is a Jesuit Catholic school,
Mm-hmm.
so there's, like, a lot of stuff going on, and I'm involved in, like, a fair amount of things.
Okay.
And so that's been very interesting, like, navigating, like, religion and religious spaces as someone that's disabled is very interesting.
Okay. Do you consider yourself to be a religious person? Mm-hmm. You do?
I, attend a Quaker meeting here in Lafayette. And so it's like I've had like this thing at the school where they wanted to do like a disability mass in the new chapel that isn't accessible. And I'm like, hey guys, maybe consider this for more than 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, like, is a common thing that you hear about in, like, disabled communities is, like, you're just existing on the street and somebody's can I pray for you?
Right, yeah.
Maybe let's not do that.
You know, when you see someone in a chair, you shouldn't see the chair. You should see the person, right?
Exactly.
And it's kind of like, yeah, I have a disability, but there's so much more to me than that.
And it's that, like, assumption, too, that, like, you're in a wheelchair, and so obviously that's the biggest thing in your life. That's the biggest problem in your life. Obviously, you want it gone. So I'm going to, like, do that. It's very, like, self-serving.
Well, and I've seen a word floating around the disability community lately, and I'm always learning new things, and I'm always willing to learn. There's a word that's come up that's called ableism, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about. People thinking, okay, well, obviously you're in a chair, you can't do anything for yourself, and I need to help you, you know. Now, and hey, it's great if you want to open the door for me, but don't expect that I need you to. Right.
Yeah, and it's like, it was that, like, mass thing was so frustrating to me because it's like, specifically, because I've had really good experiences with a lot of the professors and like resident ministers and other people, and so it was just kind of like in regards to like other issues and things like that. Like it's I say the Jesuits are like the fun Catholic.
Not all Catholics are fun, right?
The Jesuits are just like very chill and all, but then it's like, you know, you kind of get hit in the face with, oh, I'm still not welcome here because of my disability. You know, it's still not being considered. And it's really frustrating too. There's a lot of like really interesting stuff in like the field of like disability theology and stuff.
Okay.
And there's this one story that I think is really interesting, both like in a spiritual religious sense and just in like a historical sense. So in the book of John, so Jesus and the disciples are walking along, and the story, it goes, so Jesus and the disciples are walking, and they see a man by the road that was blind from birth. And one of the disciples asked Jesus, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" And Jesus says, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned that he was born blind. He was born blind so that the works of God might be revealed in him."
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
And it's like, because like it is really impossible to understate how heavily that idea of like disability as the consequence of sin or like divine retribution has been historically entrenched in our society. And I think it still underpins a lot of like ableism and issues in our society today. And it's like so incredible and radical that back 2,000 years ago Jesus was like, no, that's not correct. I'm going to push back on this. And like really affirming like the value and dignity of disabled people.
That was a great story. Thank you for sharing that. How do you see the perception of disability in general evolving in society?
I think we're moving forward in some ways. I think the like mental health and neurodivergence communities have made like a lot of really great strides like in like the recent past. The things you see on social media or like the events on like college campuses and things like that, there's like much more of an awareness to like be aware of like neurodiversity and things like that. Which is good. Returning a little bit back to like the topic of education, one of the things that I think is, and just in society in general, I think does such a disservice is like the ableism and discrimination in like the workforce. And like when we were in Maryland, like I saw my mom go through this where it's like she would apply to jobs that like, because she's visibly disabled, she uses a cane, and she would apply to jobs that like a call center or something. One time she walked into an interview and a lady, the interviewer saw her cane and her face went sheet white. Just because of the sight of her cane.
Oh, wow.
And it's like the reason she was able to get like a permanent position as a paraeducator, because before that she was only able to get temporary positions, was because it was during COVID and they couldn't tell that she was disabled. And then when she went in, they basically threw a whole fit over her being disabled. And it's like actively robs children, like disabled kids, like specifically in education, specifically robs disabled kids, especially in the field of special education, from being able to see people like them that are like living their lives and like in positions of authority, and also having people that they can connect to that understands their issues working with them, you know. That's one of the biggest issues with special education, is that it's so like paternalistic, and it's really run by able-bodied people. There's no disabled voices, which is what is needed.
Absolutely.
Both like voices of the students and of disabled adults, you know.
Absolutely. You know, you really hit the nail on the head. And I've learned American Sign Language, but it's not enough for me to just know the sign language. It's important for me to know the history of deaf people, and learning all about like the Milan Conference and how sign language was banned for many, many years. And they forced people that were using sign language to learn oralism. Like they had to learn to speak. And it's like, what? They're deaf. How can they hear themselves? But we want to keep at the forefront of disabilities. And it's good to know the culture and what they've been through. Just things like that, and learning more about Gallaudet University, Deaf President Now, that movement that was huge. And
one of the main like solutions and things that can move things forward is interacting with people that are different from
Yeah.
you know? And so because of like this history of like segregation of disabled people and like the physical barriers to disabled people being able to access like common spaces, and the societal barriers to disabled people being able to get employed or interact with other people, it really keeps it, like, it maintains that segregation.
It does.
And that's such a part of the problem, is that, you know, people just have no idea about disability issues, about accessibility. They never even think about it.
I'm listening to you talk, and I can't help but think you're such a bright young lady. Have you ever thought about running for office? Look at her. She's like, no. But seriously, I mean, I would vote for you. Right? I mean, you know, even if you start on a local level, I mean, because I can see that you're the person that's solution oriented. So if you ever do run for office one day, good luck to you. And don't forget about your friend Mary, you know, whenever you're president of the United States or something, right? You also mentioned that you have POTS.
Yeah.
Tell her I had interviewed someone last year, Katie. She has POTS as well, and I forgot what it stands for, what it's about, but tell our audience briefly what that is.
Yeah, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome.
Okay.
And so it can come from like a lot of different things. Like, it can come from viral infections. I think there's a lot of people that it's getting more like eyes on it now too, because a lot of people after getting COVID and long COVID develop POTS. But I specifically have POTS because it's a comorbidity with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Okay.
And so basically what it is like the symptoms manifest in like the heart rate and things like that, but what it actually is a dysfunction of your autonomic nervous system.
Okay.
And so when you stand up, your blood pools. That's just gravity. And so normally your stuff is going to work and like keep pumping it back through. But in POTS, like, something is off and it doesn't get pumped back up correctly. And so it pools in the bottom of your body, and you can get decreased blood flow to your brain. And so if you're standing too much, and it can be exacerbated by like environmental conditions and other things like that. So if you're standing for too long, you can get reduced blood flow to your brain and pass out.
Oh, wow. Is there some kind of treatment for that? Like let's say you're standing up and then you feel lightheaded. What do you have to do? Do you have to lay down?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've laid down on floors many a time.
This is interesting. Poor thing. I'm thinking of like public spaces too.
I had to I had this one. It was like freshman year. I like woke up and I had like awful back pain. I just didn't know what it was. Still don't know what exactly caused it. But I literally had to go to like the ER, and they basically did nothing. They were just like, take some Tylenol. Cool, man. Don't think that's gonna help. And so like my parents ended up coming in, and so we ended up trying to go to a different ER to try and get them to do anything.
Yeah.
And so at that point I started feeling like, we were sitting in the waiting room, and I was starting to feel like, it was actually after I gotten a shot. For whatever reason, after I get like a shot or like anything like that, it like triggers my POTS. I don't know why.
Ooh.
It might also be a little bit of like anxiety, because
Yeah,
also,
and maybe
like,
it increases your heart rate.
Yeah.
Or something.
But so I'll get like POTSy and all. I literally have to be laying down on the floor of the ER.
Ay.
It was not fun.
That's not sanitary. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of like all the hand sanitizer I would probably put like underneath you.
Yeah. And the POTS, so it's different for like everyone, because there's like a couple different like types and stuff, but
Okay.
I have like a cocktail of medications, so I've had to adjust it and all to manage my POTS, and so that helps, but it doesn't like, I still have various issues, and it's like anxiety and stress makes it a lot worse. And I'm personally, there hasn't been like studies on it, but it's like a dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system, and I'm very convinced that that has like links to like anxiety and stuff like that.
Sure.
Because like my personal experience of it is like different than like a lot of other people's. It's sort of like my brain is like a runaway train, and it's like there's also this thing with POTS where you get like adrenaline dumps because of the POTS and like not getting enough blood flow and things like that. That your nervous system just dumps a bunch of adrenaline on you randomly.
Yeah.
So there's just like a lot of dysfunction going on with like a lot of things that are connected to like anxiety and stuff like that. I think it's like there's definitely something there that makes like some nasty feedback loops.
So how do you deal with that? Like, do you have like a routine every day?
It's really just like one day at a time, because like that's one of the most frustrating things about my stuff is that it's not consistent. Like I can be fine one day and then it's like a mess. I can just randomly have a flare, any number of things, the weather and all can like set things off, and so it's like, it's really frustrating. It's like, sometimes you make plans or something and then you wake up that day and your body's just like, actually I think you should turn into a hermit.
Right.
Actually, I think we're gonna be laying in bed dying all day,
Well, let me ask you, what does your diet consist of? Have you noticed like if certain foods trigger it?
I don't think there's like specific foods that trigger it. There is with POTS. It's good to eat a ton of salt.
Really?
Yeah, and a lot of POTS people will like crave salt.
Interesting.
I can put like a crap ton of salt on stuff, and that's like a normal level of saltiness for me. And other people will be like, "What?"
Yeah, you're like, how does your blood pressure not spike after that?
Well, that's the point, is that it would cause blood pressure and all that to spike in other people, but since we have this condition, it helps. I think it helps with like water retention and things like that, which helps your like blood vessels be able to constrict and pump lower.
So it's almost like
easier.
It's got the opposite reaction.
Pretty much. Yeah, I think it's like, I think my doctors have advised me to get like at least like a gram of salt a day.
Wow.
Maybe like 2. I can't remember the specifics.
So instead of an apple a day, some salt a day.
Pretty much. I like the one benefit of POTS is I can eat all the salty stuff I want.
Well, we're kind of wrapping up our episode, but it's been such a pleasure to interview you and to meet you and to get to learn more about you. What is one message that you want everyone to learn from this episode?
I think one thing that I think about a lot is related to like the neurodivergent and mental health things getting like a lot of traction, which is like awesome. Yeah. But it's also, I do see sometimes like threads in that movement or people in that movement like ignoring or downplaying physical disabilities as like one example is like I think every physically disabled person like groans whenever they see it, is when someone's trying to make a point about mental disabilities and how like they're ignored or whatever. It's like, oh, well, people like dismiss and downplay like depression and stuff. You wouldn't say that to someone in a wheelchair. They do. Yes,
they do. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Not to go off on another tangent when we're wrapping up, but there's like this thread that happened. There's this pattern that I see happening historically in a lot of like advocacy and activism movements, where it's like once you get some like people that are like closer to the norm or like are able to get some progress, oftentimes some of those people will, in the hopes of achieving more for themselves, will turn on the people that are less acceptable. And it's like that sort of respectability thing. So they try to conform to the normal things as much as possible and being like, well, I'm different in this way and I know I'm pushing for this, but look, I'm normal in every other way, so it's fine, you know?
Right.
And so because of that, like people that are like higher needs, mentally disabled people, or like people with physical disabilities often get left behind.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and it never helps. Like, it never actually works. It always will backfire on you. And so that's, like, the most important thing, and especially in the disability community where we just have, like, this huge variety of people and experiences, is, like, you know, we value and maintain that community and always be trying to learn more and always be trying to support the people around you and the people that are different from you.
Yeah.
Because that's truly how we achieve things for everyone.
Right. I agree. All right, Jo. Well, it has been a pleasure to meet you. I want to thank you so much for being here today on this Ability Podcast. If you guys are enjoying our podcast, be sure to subscribe to our channel on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any other Podcast Network. All right. Thanks, Jo, again for being here today and sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yep. All episodes can be found on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, and other podcast sites. Remember, you can also find our video podcast for each and every episode on our YouTube channel. The video podcast feature a wide array of pictures submitted by each guest for their episode. Check it out today.